Be wondering, Rob, what the hell am I looking at? It looks like a mess of parts. And you'd actually be correct. It is a mess of parts. But the one that's in the big middle is a typical transmission for a 93 Mazda RX-7. Turbocharged. I don't think they made them non-turbo. Actually, I know they didn't, but that's not the point. I've fucked this one up several times, and so now it sits out for parts just in case. The one that's in my car right now also is fucked up. I have fifth gear and reverse, but I don't have both. I choose. Depends on which one I jam it into harder. And then I can't. Well, anyway. So, what I wanted to share with you guys is what caused all of my transmission problems. Because about 3 years ago, my RX-7 decided not to get back into gear. I shouldn't say it that way. My RX-7 decided to be a bitch and just wouldn't shift into gear. It felt like the clutch broke. So, I went through and diagnosed the typical clutch problems and found that there were none. But let me show you the magic behind this model of engineering. So, what we've got here is this side of the transmission right here. This is the side of the transmission that mates up with the engine block, the flywheel, all that stuff. What you'll see is in the shadows, you see this stuff. This is pretty cool stuff. That is a throwout bearing. You'll see the thing moving as I push on this lever. So literally, when you are pushing the clutch, the clutch pedal, not the clutch, but when you're pushing the clutch pedal, it's actually like this. You're actually pushing it out. For those of you guys that really care, this is called a pull type clutch. And the reason why is, see how it's sitting out like this? This is when the pedal is not pressed. The clutch requires you to pull it out. So imagine this way being pulling. So I'm pulling it out. So it's a pull type clutch. So my finger, or my thumb right here, is acting as if it's a slave cylinder, which is a part of the transmission line. And so all of a sudden I push on the pedal and it pulls out the clutch. So if anybody's wondering if they're ready to tear in their car and they want to know the mechanics of this shit, this is how it works. What's important to know, and I'll get right to this point because I accidentally broke some parts on my car, is there's a little sleeve right here, a little ring that once this goes into the clutch, or I should say the clutch pad, it locks into place. And there's a little ring that you'll want to reach in through here with like a flathead screwdriver and separate the two, and then they just pop off. If you don't do that, like hypothetically if I didn't, you get the transmission, you get all these bolts taken off, and the two are still stuck together like, I think, dogs in heat. I don't know if they really do stick together, but that's what my parents told me. So they stick together even though you got all the bolts off, and you're sitting there wondering what's going on. So unlock that. I think Wargasm, he was a dude that was on the RX-7 club forums, actually had a really cool video, short video on the clutch itself, not the throwout bearing, but the clutch, and that was very helpful. So I'm going to give some credit where it's due. Amazingly, all of the torque, all of the pressure that your engine gives to the transmission is made, or the contact is made and pushed through the transmission on these little spline gears. I think they're spline gears. So that's it right there, guys. That's the whole thing that when you do a burnout and whatnot, all of the power is being pushed through here. If you actually follow your drivetrain back, you'll be pretty surprised at all of the different small components that actually put power onto the tires or into the tires. So, why I want to show you these parts? Because of this piece of shit right here. Granted, I can't engineer one better, and I don't know why it sticks out like this. I'll zoom in, or not zoom in, I'll move the camera closer, but I don't think it's going to help much. The tip of mine's all fucked up right here, because that's where what's called a pilot bearing goes. For whatever reason, there's a, for lack of a better term, a vagina in the middle of the clutch, or the, what do I call it? Flywheel, clutch, engine. It's actually in the back of the eccentric shaft, if you want to be very specific. And it actually fits onto the tip of this, and there's a bearing between the two called a pilot bearing that keeps the two from, making contact and more specifically keeps them frictionless, well, as close to frictionless as possible. Why they didn't just cut this off, this is my personal thing. I don't know why they didn't just cut these off. Obviously, probably has something to do with keeping a straight line. That's speculative, but anyway, this, as is all gnarled up on mine, the pilot bearing decided he didn't want to be a bearing anymore, and he decided to stop. And from what I can understand, it threw some of the bearings and welded, spot, tack, whatever, welded the tip of this to the inside of my eccentric shaft. What does that do? That actually causes the transmission to be 1-for-1 every revolution with the engine, which is great when you've got the clutch in and you're in gear. That's exactly what you're doing normally. Push the clutch, nothing happens. So then you start thinking that you have clutch problems, you and your family get into a fight because you're still living at home, and your parents think that you're nuts, and they want you to take it to a mechanic. It's just a real big problem. So you don't want to be caught guessing with this issue. So what I'd recommend doing if you have clutch problems is to draw it out, first of all. And then once you've eliminated everything up to the throwout bearing, then this guy might be one of the causes. Like I said, it only happens as if when the car's in gear, you can't shift it out of gear. I mean, the shifter will work. The car just won't feel like it's in, it won't be in neutral, even if you're in neutral. Piece of shit. So, as you may notice, I also have this sitting on top of a rotor from a T2 rotary engine. That's not bastardization, that's utilization, and I think most rotary guys do the same as me, so that's respect. So, cool. If anybody has any questions, they can obviously get in touch with me.